You don't want
to
put that in this podcast.
That's what you're doing.
This eye's been twitching recently. It's been today. I think it's the stress from this week. It's been fucking nuts. Anyway, welcome to a very musical episode of Friday Night's Effing Movie Podcast.
Yep.
I added the Friday Nights in. That's actually what it stands for. This is the only episode you'll find it out. You have to watch this one episode because
An Easter egg.
Mason has a lot of feelings in this movie. We'll get to it. But we are talking about Monty Python and the Holy Grail, the comedy classic that we'll see where it lands with everybody. Nathan, you watched this movie before. Why don't you tell us about what it's about?
He always gets to. Well, obviously, this is about Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table, and they are trying to find the Holy Grail. And it follows a lot of little side stories of the various knights and their attempts to find the Grail. And ultimately, it ends with them all being arrested by the British police.
Mm-hmm.
Like in present day
present day
British police, even though it's set in like 900s, I believe is what it said. It's confusing.
Oh no, it's great.
Yeah,
like that's. There's a lot of good.
Do any of y'all actually know why they did that?
No.
Did
they run out of money?
I was about to say there was a huge big battle, and my first thought was, they did it because they didn't want to spend the money on the battle.
They were running out of money, and apparently, this is what I've heard, that the joke is that they didn't know how to end the movie either, so they did a cop-out.
Literally. Get
it?
Yeah.
Get it, Mason?
It makes it even funnier now.
Yeah, it does.
So, thankfully, this is one of those movies we don't really have to dive deep into the plot to look for all the interesting clues. That's it.
Yeah.
That's all the plot.
I mean, again, because it's a comedy, and
Yep.
most of the time comedies don't have much of a plot. They're just a mechanism for delivering jokes.
Right, and this is very much a pure comedy in the way that it is not necessarily like it's extra funny or anything like that, but it is like the jokes are what the plot are, or the plot is, and then the plot is just driving the context for the jokes. That's all it is. Like you can tell they wrote all the jokes first and then gave it a context later, and then that's the movie. Mm-hmm. So I guess let's just kind of get down to it, transitioning from there. Price and Nathan, you guys have already both seen it at length, so going and rewatching it on the first glance, what was it like for you guys?
I still loved it. I waited all week to watch it because my little brother was gone and he was wanting to watch it. We'd both seen it a ton of times and we both love it. I was in the middle of watching it. I was like halfway through it, and my little brother left everything in his truck and just rushed inside because he knew I was watching it at that time and he didn't want to miss any of it. So he came in and watched it just as soon as possible. I was like, don't you have some like groceries or stuff you need to bring in? He's like, I can wait. So
Just ice cream.
yeah, and we've seen it a ton of times and we love it. I absolutely love the movie, and I still loved it on rewatch. I loved all the jokes. I caught some things I hadn't caught before, and I mean, I love the movie top to bottom. Every scene hits for me.
You know, for me, as with a lot of things, like
Nostalgia. Come on, I know that's where it's going.
I think it'll dabble there. I don't think it'll stay there.
maybe I just don't like comedies that much.
That could be it too.
Yeah.
That's fine. Like I just don't like horror. So.
He's not a yucks kind of guy.
It's one of those. It's one of those movies that does get referenced a lot, all the time, with anybody that's ever watched them, and for that I do appreciate it. But I don't feel like going back and watching it makes any of the like referential jokes any better for me, and without like watching it with people that equally enjoy it, it's just kind of whatever.
Yeah, being
like, it's just like, oh yeah, I know where that joke came from, and like, oh yeah, cultural reference here.
Comedies by yourself really do have a certain perspective on how funny do I personally find this, because you can be infectiously funny with people like laughing around you, but if you're on your own, you're just like, it's just me to judge this on this one. It can kind of go on that, and kind of going off that point too. I think that this was a movie that, again, this is. It's hard with with classics, and especially with comedy classics, where you find like the origins of these jokes that we've been hearing for decades because they've just redone it or revamped it in a certain way. Like the Black Knight one, the source probably more than anything in the film, I would say.
Agree.
Just it's a scratch and the arm comes off, and it's a flesh wound, and it just keeps pushing it over the top.
Hits him with the sword.
Right,
his arm just comes
barely
off.
taps it. Which on those parts I did like. I appreciated that going into seeing like, this is how the scene actually plays out, and the delivery from the Black Knight I actually think is really on point, and I think that there's some appreciation for seeing how the joke is originally supposed to be delivered, because we hear it from like kind of like how you would hear one person tell another person a joke that changes a little bit along the way. So seeing it in this original context, I was just like, I really enjoyed this. But then there are some other ones that also aren't really as relevant or kind of die with the age, or things that just kind of felt annoying at times for me. The little musical pieces, or even just the horse, like I think at first it's like, okay, it's kind of funny, but then the fact that they keep on it throughout the whole thing,
that's one of the few things that I've always found
I love
about it.
I love and hate that at times. If it's a movie that, like, if it's continually funny, I will always laugh at it from their just dedication to it. But if it's a joke I don't find funny and they dedicate themselves to this whole movie, I am just like, oh god, we're hearing it again.
Makes it worse.
And they
Right.
and they reference that at the beginning of the movie. It's like, are you using coconuts?
Yeah.
Like, why are you doing that? And that's when they do the whole swallow discussion. And they're like, are you implying that coconuts migrate?
Mhm.
And it's like, well, a swallow could carry it. It's like, there's
But you were full. The mass of the size could be constantly carried. I do like that's another thing. Monty Python really excels in their dialogue. Like it's a lot of fact checks. I guarantee you, every one of those facts is probably completely on point too. Because they've and their other movies. That's another thing they're known for is like the space song. My wife was just talking to me about it today. I forget which movie it's from, but there's a whole bunch of listed facts in the song, and all of them are actually pretty factually accurate. Like so, I guarantee like a swallow could probably only carry about this much. This much.
what if they do a line between them and they help each other?
Right. The funny thing for me was, as a movie though, whenever this movie started trying to movie, I totally lost my interest. If it wasn't on the small rants where they get to a castle and they're just bickering with the guy at the top like every time, like I love that guy and I love the night banter with like the Dark Knight and the Black Knight and everything like that. But then there are times where it's just hitting the middle phases and I'm like, ugh.
Like, what parts are you talking about? Because I definitely see where you're coming from.
I know there's what's the one part I really felt like I noticed the Knights of Nya or whatever they are.
Knights of Ni?
Ni, yeah, the Knights
With the
of Ni.
shrubbery?
Yeah,
That's probably like the second most like quote thing.
It
People say
is.
Ni.
That's one that I feel like has like been beaten into the ground.
yeah. I think that's probably why.
Because it's so easy.
Yeah.
Just say Ni.
Yeah.
I've heard of this background noise for so long, and that's when I haven't noticed it. Then they're like, "Yo, you can't say it's like just like small jokes like that." Or there's just I don't know. It's just segments, and again, that's the problems with comedy. I think is that it's only as good as it is funny, and if you find parts of it funny and then the other parts of it aren't funny, and that's all the movie is at that point, then you fall in and out of it.
Yeah.
Mason, you've been quiet recently.
Yeah.
I do want to hear some critiques on your end of it, though.
It's fine. Speak your mind.
When this movie first starts, it sort of intros with this, in your face, like not commentary, but like narration, like what's it called?
The
Like
moose. Talking about the mooses and
well,
stuff.
no, just like the writing on the screen. It's like, hey, this was our budget, but then we lost it.
Yeah.
When you say that they just keep hitting with the exact same joke, and if you don't find it funny, then you're just like, please stop with this joke.
Mhm.
From the very beginning. Then the coconuts thing, which I don't like that a whole lot. It was kind of funny, whenever they start, panning over the hill, and then you're like, oh, there are no horses, they're just coconuts.
Yeah.
There's still coconuts. There's still coconuts halfway through the movie.
Oh
There's
my
still
god!
coconuts.
Just buy one horse, just one.
This movie broke up into like a few different scenes, I feel like. Kind of like what you were saying.
Oh, it's all skits.
Yeah,
I mean, yeah,
exactly.
no,
It's just a
itself.
skit kind of movie.
Which is why it's such a like quotable referential thing, because you've just
Yeah.
got like all these
Yeah.
little pieces that you can be like,
Yeah.
oh, this is something funny to reference.
Yeah.
Like the Sorcerer Tim and the rabbit, like that's referenced constantly,
Yeah.
like the killer rabbit in pop culture and the holy hand grenade and all that stuff.
Yeah. But yeah, so it's just, I don't know, this movie right from the get-go just kind of works its way under your skin if you're not ready for it, I guess. And it, to
To make
me,
it sound so nefarious.
it does. It just stays with you. And like, if I didn't think that there was a plot, by the end of it, it was just a bunch of skits thrown together in a few different scenes. And by the end of the movie, you're just like, the cops. Really? The
Yeah.
cops did it? The cops are the end? All
Well,
right.
they do foreshadow that a bit, and that
all the
one.
time.
Yeah, with the one scene with the guy getting killed firstly, and then she was like,
Yeah.
"Oh gosh!" Like,
Which they had to have cut in.
Yeah,
afterwards,
Yeah, of course.
Which is fun. It's just, it's one of these things where I'm like, maybe I should have expected it halfway through how low budget it was, how I guess campy and like, factually, I will admit, like the dialogue, I'm sure everything was perfect. Like I'm sure that was the one thing that they knew that they had to hit.
Yeah, dialogue and those
so that was
type
great.
of banters you kind of have to really be on point with.
And I was telling Price, like my favorite part of the movie was the Frenchman in the castle. Like I actually laughed at that part when they were just going back and forth and they were throwing stuff with a catapult over the castle walls.
Cow.
Like that I thought was funny because it was
And their
just
Trojan rabbit.
Yeah.
it was good, but it didn't make up for the entire other parts of the
Right.
movie.
That Trojan rabbit, like, all right, what's the plan now?
Yeah.
All right, now me and Galahad is
Yeah,
going to
so
pop
we're
out
gonna-
of it.
I do think that's part of its charm, though. It's at its time, I think this would have been a really interesting movie to really watch, like as it first came out when it's relevant,
culturally
relevant. Yeah. Looking back on it is one of those things where you just have to find the things to appreciate because you're like, this is either a movie you grew up with, so you don't notice the context and cultural differences.
Yeah.
Or you watch it as an adult like me and Mason do, and miss way past the point, and we're just like, let's just find what we really like about it. I still think that it does a good job of finding moments where, again, like there's still a handful of moments I remember laughing at it. Like I'm just like, okay, that delivers well or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it has. Comedies are interesting in the structure, thinking about it, because they have this little highlight reel of skits, right? And if they're this type of movie or Pop Star, something like that, where it feels like it's just one SNL skit. Like
I forgot I picked that.
Nothing but Tim and Eric for me. This movie was
right.
This was Tim and Eric 40 years previous.
And I kind of agree that that's
it is.
Yeah.
But
it absolutely
one
is.
thing I have to hate about in the critique points that I'll make with it is that I'm like, I can't fault it too much for that because it trendset it in that way. Like it set the foundation for that to go forward. Right. So it's that mix of being like, oh, well, I can't fault it for being the first one to do the joke, and then I've just heard it a billion times since then. But yeah, it's a movie where you have to find your laughs, and the moments you're not finding your laughs, that's all the movie caves to. Every scene is either setting up a joke, is the joke, or is a scene added in so that a joke later will pay off.
I think this movie makes more sense for to be funny and cool to young teens or people that watched it at the time at which it was relevant. Like now it's a bunch of old memes.
Yeah,
it really is.
So exactly to that point, there were a lot of reasons. I remember I put out this movie for a long time in high school. It was the CPAP kids, like all the smart snobby kids, and they thought this was just premium comedy. Like they were the smartest kids and the most movie affectionate kids. Yes, they were a class higher, not only for that, but because they've now watched Monty Python and the Holy Grail, and we quote it all the time. And I remember thinking, I'm never going to watch this movie because I hate these kids now.
Yeah.
So,
and you didn't until you're this old.
And I didn't. That hate was persistent. I totally forgot about it until I watched it. I'm like, I remember why I didn't watch this. Screw you, Matt. Matt Pierce, if you're watching this.
Yes, F you.
Yeah.
What a call out.
I'm going to his Friendsgiving. Don't worry. I'll link him to it later. If the video is up by Thanksgiving.
But yeah, I feel like this is definitely
It wasn't. You're gonna cut a scene in there for that.
Just the black screen. Like it did not.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely think this is a movie that you two have definitely missed the boat on. Like, it's years.
I'll catch the
late.
next one.
Yeah. It's definitely too late, and I feel like a lot of the Monty Python stuff is that way too.
Yeah, all of it is trend-setting in its own ways, but it's a period or a piece of its period, so to speak.
And at this point, it's all been so well tread through memes and culture that it's not going to be quite as good to see it because you're not seeing it with fresh eyes. You know the whole nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition. All of those memes have been played out at this point to where it's it's not going to be that funny because it's not going to surprise you.
You're right.
This entire movie probably didn't really surprise you, I would say.
Even with the rabbit and stuff as well. I remember I feel like I've heard about it or just seen it through references, and most of it has been. And honestly, the scenes that I didn't have a context with were usually the ones I found most annoying, surprisingly. I remember thinking this just doesn't land, and I'm like, well, it probably didn't because nobody else found it funny well, and they didn't carry it on like everybody else did.
I like that mindset that you're going in with fresh eyes, because you could either be like, I've heard this a million times, and it just bothers me that I know the context behind it now, and I don't want to I want to be difficult, not find it funny. But you're saying you found those parts funny, which I like. Because the movies that have such a following like this are going to be hard to just getting through that. Kind of I would say Rick and Morty almost. If you know the fan base, you do not want to like that shit at all.
Because you know the person, you know what they like, and you're just like, well, that's probably not what I like. So it's already going in with that bias. And I try to take that going in, and I think I did fairly well with it, all things considered. I think it helped recently. I was starting to grind through some of the Leslie Nielsen movies, so we watched Airplane recently. And it was, again, just a lot of that same stuff, some of these old classic jokes that you've heard a million times, how do you like your coffee? Black, or I like my men, black, and that was where it originated.
I did not know that's what it was from.
It originates from that one, and the delivery on it is on point, and it's just moments like that where you're like, oh, when it's how it's originally executed, you're just like, damn. Because it's a little girl that says it. It's a 7-year-old girl on an airplane that says the line and just delivers it. But we're not talking about Airplane. All that aside.
But you're talking about deliveries, and I mean, I'm sure you all noticed, but in the movie, there's only the original, most of the main actors, actually all the main actors are just the 5 or so people.
Yeah, they're just cycling through.
Yeah, which, I mean, and you can actually tell you talk about the deliveries being on point. Like those are only like a few of those actors, because some of them, like King Arthur. I mean, he was in like the actor played some other stuff in it, but he didn't like hit those highs. Like I felt like John Cleese obviously did the best. Like he was like the Frenchman and stuff, and he was like the Knights Who Say Me. I mean, he got the most to work with too because he's the best actor. And then the other guy I actually liked was the younger guy who played a lot of the roles. He also played the wimpy princess. The king or whatever.
The
father.
Yeah. The one who jumped out of
the window.
I'm not talking about him. I'm talking about his dad.
The dad.
Yeah, because he's the younger guy who's like in a lot of. And I thought his deliveries were really well too. I mean, like 2 or 3 of them, I think absolutely killed it. And the other ones were like, okay, they're all right, but I like him a lot.
I think he's going to live, and he died a tragic death. There you go. Saw that one.
All right, so along those lines, how like with comedies, since I'm pretty much the one that always does comedies, I think we should go through and just see like what everybody's
exclusively what you meant to say.
I've done a lot of comedies.
Foxcatcher was a terrible comedy. I want to point that out.
Didn't laugh.
Not only was it a terrible movie,
I think it was a better comedy than it was a drama.
I'd agree. So,
okay, anyway,
right,
favorite parts of the movie?
Black Knight, hands down.
Black Knight?
Yeah.
Black Knight got so old to me. It was just like, okay, cool. So he lost an arm. He lost another arm. He lost a leg. Couldn't have guessed this. He lost the other leg too.
Yeah, seeing how the joke goes is one thing, but again, delivery is everything on that. So.
The French castle was probably my favorite. Just that whole skit.
It's probably my very next one on that.
Yeah.
Well, I guess to kind of keep trend with picking different stuff, I'll say I did like the peasants in the mud.
That's what my pick was going to be.
Structure of society kind of thing.
And they're pointing out how stupid it is.
Look, he's oppressing me. Maybe we shouldn't make this.
One person per week, and it would change everything.
Like, what was it? Like women in water distributing swords shouldn't.
Water retard distributing swords is no means for a basis of government, and he has no argument. He's just like, be quiet. Be quiet.
I'm your king.
To nobody's surprise, Nathan's anti-government political talks are the favorite part of this whole movie.
And he's like, I'm king of the Britons. And they're like, who are the Britons? And he's like, you're the Britons. And he says like there's some kind of weird government. And he's like describing how they make their decisions, and he's just like, be quiet.
See, and that's part of the I think that's the small charms that keep me invested at times, even when it's not particularly I don't find that particularly funny. I'm humored by thinking of that's really smart commentary on it still though. Even again setting the context up when they know they have the joke. That scene encapsulates exactly how they made that movie. They're like, let's make a commentary on government joke. Okay, let's do this. Okay, and then they got there.
If you're going with that scene, and I can't pick that one, I'm going to go with the witch trial. I mean, I know it's ridiculously beaten to death, but I still think it's hilarious. Just the logic that he uses, and the faces of the townspeople, they're like, and what also floats, and they're sitting there like little rocks, mud,
a duck. So she weighs the same as a duck.
That she's made of wood. Yeah. And she's a witch. Burn.
Yeah. I think we transition into this will be an interesting segment to transition with this one. So
I don't know my answer for this one.
It's our age-old classic. What's the body shape? I gotta think of a better way to name this segment. Fit, perfectly fat, and thin. That's right.
Perfectly fat.
Perfectly fat. So it's either fat, thin, or perfectly fit. This is a segment on the show. If you've watched at this point, you know, but that's pretty much sums up how you feel about the movie. Is the movie run time a little too long? Would you cut stuff? If it's thin, is it a little too less? Would you add stuff? Is it perfectly fit? Does the movie fit the runtime perfectly? You don't blink and you don't look at the time. Mason, I know that you probably looked at the time once.
But you're not going into this discussion with an open mind whatsoever.
But as open, I'm going in very open with this movie so far.
You're not Mason.
No, I resorted to about a third to halfway through this movie. I was doing laundry. I was keeping myself busy because, honest to God,
I hate it when you people do this. Mainly you two people.
I had to. This movie, you don't have to be so present for this movie. You really don't. You don't have to.
There's a lot of nuances you're gonna miss. Like the scene with the Frenchman, actually, when they're building the rabbit or whatever, and he's just looking around and he can't figure out what's going on. Then he's just hitting his head for some reason.
Dead space. Is what that is.
No, he's still acting
dead space
in that time
that they have to fill. That's what that is. That's all. Anyways,
no, it's setting up the joke. But please continue.
I feel like that was part of building the joke.
I mean, it was the tension, I guess. But at the same time,
I can see Mason's point. That's the purpose of the film, but doesn't necessarily mean that that's important.
Why was he just doing this? Just to point out the fact that he's French still, and grind
I
that
think it was
point.
just like he
He
was probably just like prompted to be like, okay, just kill some space, like act like you don't know what's going on, and he was just like, this would be funny because I've got these gloves, and the gloves like do this little side thing whenever I slap on my head.
Stuff like that
Yep.
just irks me to bits. It's so bad, and like I get it. This is a very low budget movie, and what was it? The 80s, 70s.
70s. Yeah.
Okay.
75
Fair.
or 4.
I'll give it credit where it's due. It was one of the first to do that kind of stuff. It's just like parts like that. I'm just like, okay, like I get it. They're making something out in the woods, and I even thought too, without ever seeing it, I was like, they're probably making a Trojan horse because they're kind of touching on all these like historical parts, obviously, and then they wheel out. Was it a rabbit?
They had
Yeah,
a famous
okay.
they had a famous historian in it for a couple minutes to verify it.
Well,
He was probably killed though.
Yeah.
oh yeah, he was killed.
He definitely was killed.
He definitely got
It
killed.
says
That's why
like
they got
famous
arrested.
historian, and then like a
Yeah.
night just goes by and goes, ah.
Yeah, so like it was almost, I don't know. I'm gonna say it a million times. It was too much, but can I go ahead and do my fat or thin?
Yeah,
That's what you're
that's
doing.
what I'm probably gonna
That's
do.
what you're doing.
Yeah. He's like, I'm
Well, you asked
so
me-
irate.
you asked
Here on the
about-
show, we ask him a segment, and Price asks him another segment in the middle of our segment. Fat, thin, perfectly
I didn't
fit.
do anything.
I actually have no answer for this because I think if I say that it was fat, then I would have to designate a plot for this movie. I don't know if I could grind it down into something. If
It's
I
a
said
comedy.
If I said it it was thin, then I would have to add to it. And God Almighty, don't make me add to this movie. And if I said it was fit, then I'd just be lying to everyone. Because
So,
I have
what is your
no
deal?
What if you-
It's not a movie that you can sit here and be like,
Can we go
that
get you?
was perfect.
Can we go get you a Snickers? You're not like you when you're hungry.
Amazing. What if you contend that, all right, you just cut out all the parts that you dislike, and then you just keep the couple
It's
things
just
that you
the
did,
five
and that's it.
Frenchman part.
So you just want it as the
That's
one
what we
SNL skit that you
call
want
a
out of it.
short.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't even be a short, it would be more like a
YouTube
bit.
clip.
yeah, a 90-second clip.
You can catch another review where we do this over on the Third Star. The Third Star?
Oh yeah.
The Third Star. You can check our
I
review
would
on
watch
that.
Third Star over this movie again.
Woo!
Oh no.
Oh.
Absolutely.
Oh
I
no!
would.
All right. So anyway, we'll say it's fat from your perspective
It's
because
got
if
a
you
better
could,
cast.
you would
it.
just
Yeah,
cut
you're
the
done.
thing.
You're done here.
Okay. I've
Nathan,
said
go.
my piece.
So it's definitely fat. The parts where it's fat is the cartoon sections to
Mhm.
me. That's if you were gonna cut anything,
Ah, dang.
those
He's
serve
right.
No,
yeah,
no, but yeah.
those serve no purpose at all.
Yep.
They don't need to be
The
there.
one that I felt the most on that was when the guy was writing like the tea or something
then-
and jerked it, and
yeah,
then he
and
went
then
down
he goes
the stairs.
down the stairs, and I was like,
come on. And it was
Like,
just the
that's
sun
basically
jumping.
so that was the equivalent to Family Guys like grabbing the knee and like
Yeah.
Oh wait, would you say that it was just to kill space?
yeah.
Yeah.
that was.
Oh,
I agree
That
with
was. That was.
So odd.
Yeah, so in that sense, that specifically. Also, I don't like the young prince thing.
I
just
that
don't
whole
like
line.
that bit very much.
Yeah.
But
That-
that's
it
just
just
a
it
personal-
for you. It's like
yeah.
comedy.
I could. So I don't like it so
Look
much
at
that I don't remember it even being in the movie until it showed up, and I was like, oh yeah. Oh, I'm not gonna like this.
Mm.
You didn't like the little argument that the father had with the guards.
Now
before
that is good. That piece of it is good, and I guess you can't really have that piece without the rest of the pie. But I didn't really enjoy the rest of the pie.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's a fat movie.
It went on for a while.
It does.
That little bit with
Yeah.
Lancelot going through and slaughtering everybody and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, speaking of pie, this is a fat movie. Yeah, this movie, it oversees welcome. The animated parts, Nathan got to it before I did. Those parts, I'm like, what's this here for? Even on some of the claymation stuff is like a little extra, like when they get to the cave monster one and it's chasing them down, they're like, but then the
Yeah.
animator died, and then he dies.
It's
And
not claymation.
it looks like claymation. It's that moment where
Claymation's like in Parks and Rec where he's like got the actual clay.
it's the cheap budget one where they have
You
mini
remember that
figurines and they
part?
have a shot
Yeah.
like that. Like, that whole
It's
part.
animation.
It's stop motion.
Yeah, stop motion. That's what I'm thinking
Yeah,
about. Sorry. So, yeah, I would say some parts like that. Obviously, there's a handful of parts I don't like, so by default, I'm just like, well, if this movie is just one long running joke, then I'm just going to keep the parts I think are funny. So I probably cut a lot out of this just for that part on that. So it's just a fat movie. It's by structure. It's one of those movies that's hard to do for this segment because, again, its
I think
purpose is what
it's hard to sit there and cut and paste, comedies,
Right,
As,
yeah.
as a category because it's like, like if we're looking at Step Brothers, which is, I'll give it to you, loads better than this. Like that movie was fit as hell compared to this. You know what I mean? Like, there's nothing that you really want to cut from that.
And I watched the deleted scenes for Step Brothers, and I'm glad they cut those out
Really?
because it is bad.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know.
Except the part that I
harder
showed
to
you
do
with
that.
Sorry, go ahead.
That I think actually would have made it worse in the movie. If I
Oh.
saw that in the film, it might have made.
Oh, sorry, it is my turn.
Yeah, think.
I was totally going to say fit. Like when he started this segment, I was like, it's obviously fit. And then I hate Nathan because he's right. Because, I mean, I felt
He
that
wouldn't
when
have agreed if
watching
I
the
said
movie.
that right now, but because Nathan said it, he'll take it.
No, he actually went first, and I would have said it then because I wasn't thinking about those animated segments because you just pass over them. Like there's, you don't like. I don't like them.
Mason did laundry during that time.
Yeah, they're the interludes, the bathroom.
Like the
breaks.
little like parts that like.
Why does it need it? It's not long enough to
Like,
make that
like the interludes that I thought were funny, where the narrator's talking or something, and like you see his hand, and then this like monster's hand comes up and like puts his hand over his, and then takes it away, and like you hear like some kind of like scream, and you're like, oh okay, whatever that is, and then it goes back to the next segment, and it's just got
Just
the
the
monster
monster
hand doing it. I kind of wish it just would have like that was quick and snappy. It was something behind the scenes. It was really funny, and then they started doing the animated thing, and I'm with you. Like it wasn't funny. It wasn't necessary. It just needed to be something really quick because I liked all of the like the live action stuff, and those all hit for me. But yeah, the animation part I didn't feel like was needed.
I wonder how much of the budget went into that.
It's a good question.
A surprising amount would have to go into the
You would
animation
think
part.
so.
Right, animation
And
that
it's not a
damage?
big budget, and
Yeah,
they
right.
ran out of money.
So for them to blow it on that, so yeah, I don't know. I assume
Yeah.
it's
It must have
still
spent
like
just like that on costumes or something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's definitely props.
props
Yeah.
is
This
95%
movie
of the budget.
was full of,
Yeah.
of that to make it
Yeah,
back.
I think
And
they just
had
went into
pretty
some
good-
backyard New
pretty good
Zealand and
outfits,
shot.
you know.
Yeah, I mean the outfits were good enough for what it was. So
I would bet that they probably filmed this in England somewhere.
probably.
Uh, considering
I don't think it would.
I mean
be-
they're British, so yeah, that makes sense for them.
And I want to start the scoring.
Go for it.
So I want to start on a negative note because it either starts on that side, like on that corner, or it starts on this corner, or we can start with like one of you two. I'm fine with that.
That's fine. I don't care.
You start with negative.
So welcome to the
line all
score
time.
segment, guys.
So, do you want to end on a low note?
End on a low note.
Oh,
So I don't
okay.
want to influence like other people's scores.
All right,
Okay.
all right. So we're here on the score segment where we figure out what our scores are and why we put it there. Nathan, we're gonna start with you actually.
Fine with me.
Okay, so
I
I found myself laughing more about the jokes in this movie with us talking about the jokes in this movie.
You do that with
than-
every comedy we watch.
That's right.
Tim and
That's
Eric.
Tim and
right?
Eric.
Most-
That is right.
It's
Mitchell has
funnier
them.
by making
I-
fun of it than anything.
I find referencing things a lot more funny than the actual thing is
I
kind
don't
of what
get
happens
that.
here.
Comedy is
so,
subjective, though.
Yeah.
Just means we're funnier than the movie.
I'll give you all credit for that. Fine.
Sure,
That's fine.
sure,
Yeah.
why not? All right, you got it.
Yeah.
6.5. It's okay. I watched it when I was younger. I remember enjoying it decently well. I didn't enjoy it as much as the people that wanted to watch it.
Price. You
around
just want
that
to say
time
price.
did.
Yeah,
No,
'cause I
well,
was
so like
or the Stompy Kids
my
on the price.
long-term friend Ethan loves that movie.
I could see that for him.
Yeah.
Loves it. Like he's the one that got me to watch it. He likes it a lot more than I do.
Yeah.
People say like are like fanatical about it though.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
don't
Like,
fuck with those people.
No.
You really don't.
Yeah,
that's,
that's what
that's,
the fan-
that's
we
an
don't-
army
we-
that you don't want to mess with.
we should have like a disclaimer before this even rolls of like if you like this movie, maybe don't listen to us talk.
This is a review, so there's criticisms, which means you hate us for anything that's bad about this.
Please don't track us down.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Me.
the referencing of this movie, I'm always gonna like find it kind of funny because it's funny whenever you think about it referentially, but it's not so funny whenever you're just sitting there watching it.
Yeah.
To Nathan. Because I was
To me.
still laughing to myself with nobody in the house when I was watching this by myself.
Do
Yeah,
that
that's
anyway.
fine.
You're a psychopath.
Yeah. Me? No, I was gonna pass it to you. I want to see how the curve goes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's definitely just a 5 for me. Talking about referencing,
Don't
like,
look at
so when I think about all these other comedies
There's
that
nothing
we
wrong.
have been told to watch
Sure.
by his truly, I think we've referenced like Tim and Eric a lot. I think we've referenced Step Brothers a lot. I think we've referenced a lot of these other comedies. You won't find me referencing this movie at all. Like that's how much it didn't land for me. Just because it's like okay, 'tis but a flesh wound. I've heard that prior to that Black Knight scene, which that's probably where it came from, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
That is definitely where it came from.
It sounded familiar, so I had
Yeah,
to put it
source.
put 2 and 2 together.
Yeah.
When I first saw it, I was like, okay, that's that joke.
Mhm.
That's where it's from, you know. And some of these other things too. It's like like I've heard about the coconuts thing before, but I didn't reference or connect it to this movie. And it's just, I don't know. Like, I won't reference this movie at all compared to, like I said, the other ones. And that to me weighs a lot on my score too, because it's like, it's from the 70s, and I'm already kind of tough on old movies anyway.
He's a harsh critic on Star Wars, this guy.
Yeah. Let's not talk about Star Wars.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I'm all those old movies.
The Fifth Element was great. Like, I've seen some of these older movies now, and I like them as long as they have a lot to offer. This one, I'm never going to reference it, ever. So, that's mine. 5.
The solid 5 from Mason. I'll go next on this one, and I'm gonna Wonder Twin it up. I won't lie to you, it's a 6.5. And nobody surprised me, and Nathan's scores tend to be polarizing towards each other's on that one. But for a lot of the same reasons, going into it for the first time watching it, I'll say that I appreciate some of the jokes, and you can having that mindset going in, knowing you have to find some appreciation for some jokes you've probably heard a billion times before, but seeing how they delivered, some of them really landed, some of them really didn't for me. It's at the end of the day, I'm looking at this movie, and it's a movie that's a long skit. And a lot of the parts of the skit, I just kind of tuned in and out of at times. I felt like it wouldn't really capture my interest. Sometimes I was like, oh, that's funny. Or other times I'm like, the fucking coconuts again. Jesus. Oh, God, again. So just moments like that, I would just be like, I'm either in it or against it. And I will say I can get the appeal at this point. I can see why it was so groundbreaking for its time, and that it still has some funny jokes now that actually still land with me. It is still a testament to it as a whole, but overall, as a movie and as a comedy piece, a lot of it just still doesn't land for me in that same way. But enough credit where credit's due. I put it at a 6.5. I think that's pretty fair for it.
Okay. Do I get to go now?
Go ahead and hit the 10 button. Hit the 10.
I'm not doing it.
Hit the button.
It is not a perfect movie. I mean, even if I did think it was perfect, like I feel like when I was saying fat, like a perfect movie isn't going to be fat. And unfortunately, you idiot ruined that for me. But no, I'm going with an 8.5. I'm not going to go that high. It is a movie. Like when I rate it that high, that means I really liked it, and I think other people really like it, and I would watch it again and recommend it to people, and I still would even after this discussion, because I really like the movie. Every skit lands for me. I quote it all the time. Like I Run Away. I do that. Like I love every part of this movie. It's just, even though like all the live action pieces like really hit for me, and the animated doesn't really hit for me, there's still some like kind of lulls where I'm waiting for the next joke. Like I'm waiting for that witty dialogue that I like between the characters. And just for that reason, I had to knock it down below a 9. Still really like it. I own the movie. I picked the movie, and still think it's really funny. And 8.5 is real solid for me, because I mean I could watch it again like next year or something and still find something I didn't notice or remind me of something I thought was funny. So yeah, 8.5.
So those are our scores for this evening's lukewarm to okay to good score ranking of. Python and Holy Grail. We have one segment left, and that is up to Mr. Nathan himself, where he gets to tell us what we're doing next week. What are we watching?
We're going to watch Being John Malkovich.
Bean. Is it a Mexican movie?
Being.
Ah, got him.
Being John Malkovich.
Being. Human being, John Malkovich.
Yeah, so this is a classic, I'd say. It's
I've never heard of it.
I've heard of it.
It's not that old.
Heard of it before?
It's really not that old.
Yeah, it's what, like 90s?
No, it's in the 2000s.
I don't remember exactly what it is.
Doesn't matter.
But in any
We're
case,
watching
we're
it
watching
anyway.
it.
We're watching it either way.
It feels like an older movie.
Yeah.
I'll say that much. But we'll see
where Mason's score's going to go then.
Yeah.
I hope I'm not wrong. I'm pretty sure it's in the 2000s. I don't know. We'll see.
Mason's keeping his fingers crossed like, I want to give it more than a 5.
But it's got to be new enough.
Yep.
It's also got to hold some type of foundation. That was a shot at your movie.
Boom! That's our show, guys. You can catch me on Twitter at CAMACH Octopus. You can catch me over at the Call to Action podcast. If you want to watch some movie trivia showdown
I'm
stuff.
at Rudy Wink. Rudy Wink.
I guess he's at a podcast now too.
No, it's a YouTube.
Sure.
Oh.
Yeah.
Mason and
Basketball trick shots from when I was in high school.
No.
Nathan's already behind the camera. We'll see you next week. Being John Malkovich, human being.
We're upside down.
Oh.